Today in Washington, D.C., a congressional roundtable met to examine the toxic workplace culture surrounding the Washington Commanders and owner Dan Snyder. Former team employees and members of Congress called on the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell to release a report about the team's history of sexual harassment and its sexist, hostile workplace culture, citing Snyder has not been held accountable. Let's bring in Tisha Thompson at the hearing. She was there today in Washington, D.C. Tisha, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us what happened there today?
Sure. I think the biggest news item that came out of it was that Tiffany Johnston, a former manager of marketing and events, testified in front of Congress that in 2005 or 2006, she was attending a work dinner and Dan Snyder put his hand on her thigh under the table. She couldn't get him to stop, and that he later tried to push her into a limousine until his attorney told him that that wasn't a good idea. That was a new revelation. She was one of several women, 5 in total, who told Congress about these types of what they called sexual harassment events that happened over the course of 20 years under Snyder's tenure. Snyder has contended that he is a hands-off boss. These women told Congress it couldn't be even further from the truth, and documented and explained events where he was involved in very minute decisions, and said that he really set the tone within the Washington Commanders organization. Republicans were sympathetic, but said that they didn't think Congress was the right place for this kind of conversation, that this is a private company. It should be dealt with by HR and maybe the criminal courts or the civil courts. Democrats, on the other hand, feel very strongly and that this is something that Congress should be involved in. They're looking at 2 things. One, legislation for all types of companies that would prevent the use of non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements, of which all of these women in Washington had to sign, to be used to what they call cover up instances of sexual assault and sexual harassment. Congressman Gerald Connolly and others also emphasized that it is Congress that gives the NFL its special tax status. And another congresswoman pointed out today that it was about $8 billion that the NFL was able to pocket last year because of that special status. That comes to about $250 million a team. And that is money that could be used by the taxpayers. So that is potentially going to become something that Congress keeps looking into.
Wow, thank you for all the latest there from Washington, D.C. Tisha Thompson joining us on NFL Live. Let's get Adam Schefter back with us here. And Adam, what more can you add to this story?
Well, Laura, this is not the first time that the NFL's handling of the investigation has come into question, and people have wondered about whether the league did or didn't do a thorough job, what did and didn't come out of this particular investigation. And so here we are again with another example of that. Now, in response to that, Daniel Snyder, the Washington attorney, released his own statement on what seems like statement day here in the NFL, saying essentially that these are he called them outright lies, Laura, but he said, well, past conduct of the team is unacceptable. The allegations leveled against me personally in today's roundtable, many of which are well over 13 years old, are outright lies. And like I said, I unequivocally deny having participated in any such conduct at any time with respect to any person. And so there was Dan Snyder's response to all that was said today on Capitol Hill as the talk continues to go on. The bottom line is, as the organization tries to move forward, as it's made many changes with its employees, as it's done what it believes is its best to change the culture, it continues to have to answer questions about things that have gone on within this organization in recent years.
Yeah, at some point you can't move on without contending with the past. And that's something that this Washington organization is dealing with. Thanks to Adam there for the latest. And Mina, I want to bring you in here because I think as we both have processed through the disgusting nature and horrifying nature of these accusations and this story, there's so much of a bigger picture element to this. What can you say about it?
Yeah, well, first, the reason that this is in front of Congress and we're hearing about it is because while the NFL did investigate all of these allegations, the report was never not only made public, written down. It was delivered orally, and I think that's a massive problem with regards to transparency, with regards to the accountability that the NFL has claimed it's applied to Daniel Snyder, who's been fined. Personally, I find that idea difficult to reconcile with what we heard today. As Tisha explained, not only these continued allegations of sexual misconduct throughout the organization, but also a report from the Washington Post that was corroborated today with an allegation about intimidation by Snyder and his employees. The reason we're still talking about it is because accountability didn't happen. And the reason that they're still answering for it, even though there's been some change in the organization, is because there was never a resolution. And that's where we are today. And that's why we're going to continue to talk about it, because when I hear the league say, hey, we want this to be a league where female fans, female employees, female coaches are a part of where we're going, I just can't see that when I hear something like this.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.